Not because I was losing my mind, but because after 20 years of silence from my only son, even the sound of my own voice started to feel unfamiliar. It had been 2 decades since Brian spoke to me. No calls, no letters. The last time I heard his voice was in a courthouse hallway the day I signed the divorce papers. He was 18, old enough to choose, and he chose her. Joanne got the house, she got the car, and she got him. I got what was left, an apartment on the outskirts of Omaha, my old job as a bakery accountant, and the kind of loneliness that doesn't knock, it seeps. Still, I sent him a birthday card every year. I never missed a single one. I bought them carefully, never too emotional, always signed just Mom. I thought maybe if I gave him space, he'd find his way back. But the envelopes always came back unopened, like little boomerangs of rejection. It's strange. You don't really hear silence until it's lasted years. It grows teeth. It scratches at the inside of your chest. Christmases were the worst. I'd bake sugar cookies out of habit-old recipes from my mother and set a few aside just in case. Just in case he showed up. Just in case he remembered. He never did. But I did. I remembered everything, like how he used to sneak a cookie before dinner when he thought I wasn't looking, or how he'd pretend to hate hugs but never pulled away. So when the phone rang that Tuesday evening, I nearly didn't answer. I thought it was another telemarketer, another fake charity or car warranty call, but something in me reached for it anyway. Hello, a pause, Mom. My heart didn't skip a beat. It stopped entirely. I gripped the phone so tight I could hear the plastic creak in my hand. Brian, his voice was casual, too casual, like we'd spoken just yesterday. Hoy chat GPT, yeah, it's been a while. I was thinking, with the holidays coming up, maybe we could get together. Joanne and I were talking, and we thought it'd be nice. Family time, family time. That phrase stung sharper than any silence he ever gave me. I glanced over at the framed photo on my kitchen shelf. Him at age 8, gap-toothed, smiling frosting on his nose from one of our baking days. That boy vanished a long time ago. I didn't respond right away. My throat was thick. You want to see me? Now I finally said. Yeah. He laughed that same nervous laugh he used when he lied about breaking the garage window as a kid. It's Christmas, Mom. We should put the past behind us. Put the past behind us. If only it were that easy. I didn't say yes, not yet, but I didn't say no either. I just stood there in my dimly lit kitchen snow, beginning to fall outside my window and realize something. After 20 years of silence, sometimes the most dangerous sound is a voice you've been waiting to hear. I didn't sleep much that night. His voice lingered long after the call ended, familiar but hollow. I kept hearing that line, family time, as if 20 years could be patched up over turkey and pie. I stood by the window as snow powdered the street, watching the lamplight flicker across my quiet neighborhood. I didn't feel excitement. I didn't feel anger either. What I felt was unsettled, like someone had moved the furniture inside me just enough to make walking through myself unfamiliar. The next morning, I Googled him. I told myself it was just curiosity, but I knew better. You don't spend 20 years in the dark and not crave a little light, even if it burns. His name popped up faster than I expected. Brian Carter, co-founder of HearthTech AI, a tech startup. Of course. There was a photo of him in a black blazer standing in front of some futuristic kitchen appliance, smiling like a man who'd never ghosted his own mother. The article called him visionary. My stomach turned. Then I saw the date on the piece, nearly a year old. I dug deeper. The company's social media hadn't posted in months. A Reddit thread speculated about misuse funding layoffs, disappearing investors. Something wasn't adding up. Later that afternoon, my neighbor's daughter, Lily, came by to drop off her usual coffee order. She always picked up a box of my cinnamon rolls for her workplace on Fridays. She leaned on the counter and grinned. Did you see you're in the paper again? She handed me a folded copy of the Omaha Journal. Page 12, a small write-up about Grandma's Grace expanding into Kansas. I smiled politely, but something clicked in my chest. That's when it made sense. That phone call last night, it wasn't random. It wasn't emotional. It was timed. They didn't miss me. They noticed me. Later that week, I got another call, this time from Joanne. Her voice hadn't changed much, still smooth and purposeful, like someone who measured each word for maximum impact. "Evelyn," she said, sweet like a spoonful of artificial sugar, "I'm so glad Brian reached out. He told me you might come for Christmas. I think that's wonderful." I could almost hear the clink of wine glass in her hand, the performance of it. I kept my voice flat. "Did he? Well, we just think it's time. All those years, no point holding on to old pain, right?" I didn't answer right away. My eyes were on the baking tray in front of me, sugar cookies shaped like little trees. I was icing the edges green. "Right," I said eventually. "No point." That night I sat in bed staring at the ceiling. He wasn't calling because he wanted me back. He was calling because I was back. Back in the news, back in the spotlight, back on their radar. I thought about that first Christmas alone, the year after the divorce. I'd made lasagna for one and sat at this same kitchen table pretending it was enough. I didn't cry, I didn't drink, I just existed. That was the year I stopped decorating the tree. Now, 20 years later, they suddenly wanted me back at the table. What changed? Not my birthday. Not a death in the family. Not some revelation of regret. What changed was that I'd become useful again. And that's when the second wound opened, not because of what they said, but because of why they said it. And still, I said yes. I told Brian I'd come. Christmas Eve, 6 o'clock. I even let my voice warm just a little. "I've got a surprise for you," I said. He laughed nervously. "A surprise? Like what?" I let the silence answer him. 2 days after I told Brian I had a surprise for him, I made another call. This time, it was me who dialed. I waited until just after lunch when people are half distracted and more likely to let their guard down. The phone rang 3 times before he picked up. "Mom," he said, sounding almost pleased. "Didn't expect to hear from you again so soon." I took a breath, let just enough shakiness into my voice. "Brian," I said, I wanted to talk to you about something important before Christmas." "Okay, what's going on?" I paused, let it breathe. I wasn't going to say anything, but I've had some financial trouble. The silence on the line was subtle, but I heard it. Not shock, not concern, stillness, calculation. "What kind of trouble?" he asked carefully. I sighed like someone carrying shame. I tried investing, crypto, NFTs, all that nonsense people online swear by. I thought I was being smart, but the market crashed last week and, well, I lost most of what I had. He didn't respond immediately. I gave him space, let the reality of my made-up collapse sink in. Finally, he cleared his throat. That's that's rough, Mom. I mean, it happens. Markets are crazy. Not a single word of comfort. Not one. Are you okay? Not even a, we'll get through this, just inconvenience. I might still be able to cover Christmas dinner, I said softly, but not much more. I waited. He filled the silence with a cough. Then a quiet, you know, "Maybe it's best you skip it this year." There it was. He didn't even try to fake it. "It's just we've already made plans and things are kind of tight here too. And with you dealing with your own stuff, it might just be easier for everyone." Easier for him. I stared at the small pine tree I'd placed near the window, not decorated, just there, like a witness. "Right," I said, my voice calm, easier. "We'll definitely get together soon, though. When you're back on your feet. When I'm useful again." I thought. I could have ended the call there. But something in me, some quiet ache, some need for final confirmation, pressed a little further. "Brian," I said gently, "I'm still your mother." Another pause. Then, "Of course, Mom. No one's saying you're not." But he already had. He'd said it in 1,000 unspoken ways over the years. He said it in every unopened envelope, every missed birthday, every holiday morning I spent alone at the kitchen table pretending I didn't mind. He said it just now in the ease with which he hung up. And that's when it became clear this wasn't disappointment. This wasn't hurt. This was confirmation. After 20 years of silence, he only picked up the phone when he thought I had something to offer. And the moment he believed I didn't, he dropped me again just as easily. I hung up and stared out the window for a long time. The snow had started falling again, light, steady, unbothered. It didn't care who called or didn't call. It just kept showing up. So would I. but not as the woman he remembered, not as the woman they thought they could invite in, flatter, and exploit. I wasn't coming to beg for closeness. I was coming with clarity, with intention, with everything they never saw coming. I woke up the next morning with a kind of stillness I hadn't felt in years. Not peace, exactly, more like the moment just before a storm when the air gets too quiet. Something had shifted, something in me. I poured myself a cup of coffee, black and hot, and sat down at the kitchen table, the same one that had been both witness and companion through 2 decades of holidays spent alone. I opened my old spiral notebook, the one I used to track bakery orders when I still worked part-time at Meadowview Sweets. But this wasn't for cookies. At the top of a fresh page, I wrote Brian and Joanne, questions. Then I started listing what I knew and what I didn't. Brian's startup had gone quiet online, social media inactive, website down, no recent updates. But I remembered what I saw in that Reddit thread, investors asking questions, rumors of money misused, and Joanne. The last I'd seen of her was a blurry Facebook post a neighbor showed me a year ago, her in a scarf and sunglasses with a caption about chemo brain and grateful for the donations. Donations. It didn't make sense. Joanne had always been sharp, calculated. She never asked for help, never showed weakness. I closed the notebook and opened my laptop. It felt strange using it for something other than recipe orders, but I knew what I was looking for. GoFundMe. I searched her name, and there it was. Help Joanne beat stage 3 ovarian cancer. Nearly $27,000 raised. A dozen updates, photos of her in hospital gowns, IVs taped to her arms, handwritten notes saying, "Thank you for your prayers." The comments were full of kind strangers sending love, money, encouragement. I scrolled slowly, my stomach tightening with every post. It was all too curated, too perfect. And something about the hospital photo looked familiar. I reverse image searched it. Stock photo used on 3 other cancer-related blogs. My hands went cold. I reached for my phone and called Patricia Long. She used to be my boss's secretary back when I did the books for Long and Harris Dentistry. Patricia had retired 2 years ago, but not before taking a job part-time in patient records at Lincoln Memorial Hospital. She answered on the second ring. "Evelyn," she said, surprised. "Haven't heard from you in forever." I kept my voice light, friendly. "Patricia, I know this is out of the blue, but I need a favor." Quietly. There was a pause. Then, "You okay?" "I'm fine, but I need to know if Joanne Carter has been treated at Lincoln. Cancer chemotherapy? Anything." Another pause, longer this time. "You're asking for private records, Ev." "I know. I wouldn't ask if it weren't important. People are donating money to something I'm not sure even exists. And I think my son's involved." Patricia sighed. Then softly, "Give me a couple hours." That evening, she showed up at my door with a manila envelope in her coat. No cancer diagnosis, no chemotherapy, no oncology visits, just a few routine checkups. One sinus infection, a dental cleaning. That was it. I sat in my armchair for nearly an hour after she left, just holding the papers. Not reading, just holding, feeling their weight. Everything I had suspected confirmed. But this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about good people, real people sending $20 bills and handwritten prayers to a woman who wasn't even sick, who lied for sympathy, for money, for attention. And Brian. I checked his social media again. It all lined up. Every time Joanne posted an update, Brian followed up within days with some new project announcement or photo of a luxury meal or designer watch. They weren't just lying, they were partners. A mother and son operation, draining kindness out of strangers and calling it survival. That night, I opened the same notebook again. This time, I wrote at the top the plan. Not revenge, not spite, just consequences. They thought I was the same woman they left behind. They had no idea who I'd become. I've always believed in clean workspaces. Even when I was baking, I kept my counter spotless, mise en place, everything in its place. That mindset served me well now. By noon the next day, I had a stack of papers spread neatly across my kitchen table, like ingredients for a different kind of recipe. medical records, screenshots, fundraising statements, bank activity, photo timelines. Each one told a story of greed disguised as hardship, a story of people who thought no one was watching. But I was watching now. I made a fresh pot of coffee, opened my laptop, and pulled up my old contact list from when I used to do books for local businesses. I'd kept it all in a password protected spreadsheet, neatly organized, alphabetically labeled. First call Derek Moore, former client, now a senior partner at a boutique venture capital firm in Lincoln. I remembered he once invested in food startups and mentioned looking into Brian's company. He picked up on the first ring. Evelyn, wow. Long time. What can I do for you? It's about Brian Carter. Silence. Then, that kid, let's just say his name's not welcome in our boardroom anymore. I didn't push. I just said, I might have something you want to see. I sent over the file. 3 minutes later, he called back. You got all this yourself, every page. You realize what this is, right? If we send this to our legal team, that's up to you. By the end of the day, I'd spoken with 3 private investors, one of whom had lost nearly $80,000. I didn't name drop or embellish, I just provided receipts. I wasn't looking for drama, I was looking for truth. Their anger didn't explode, it sharpened. We're forming a group, one of them said. Lawsuits, asset freezes, it's long overdue. Good. While they moved their chess pieces, I turned back to mine. I emailed a journalist at the Lincoln Herald, a young woman named Tessa I'd met once at a community fair. She'd interviewed me about Grandma's Grace when we were expanding into Kansas. This time, I gave her something heavier than frosting and family recipes. She didn't respond with questions. She replied with one word, understood. The next morning, I printed everything legal threats, screenshots, donation records, investor statements, and slipped them into a crisp manila folder. On the front, in black marker, I wrote, to Brian and Joanne, Merry Christmas. I slid it under my coat like a present wrapped in truth. Then I baked a small apple pie, not because they deserved it, but because I needed something warm in my kitchen that day. I placed it on the windowsill like old times and stood quietly watching the sun settle over the snow-covered street. They thought I'd be arriving Christmas Eve with a checkbook and a guilty smile. What I'd be bringing instead was clarity. The kind that doesn't yell, doesn't break things, just lands, quiet and permanent. I wasn't coming to save them, I was coming to free myself. Christmas Eve arrived like any other cold Nebraska night, quiet, a little too bright under the snow, and full of things people pretend not to feel. I dressed simply, a soft gray sweater, dark slacks, a pair of flats that didn't make noise when I walked. No jewelry, no perfume. Just me and the manila folder I slipped gently into my tote bag like a loaded weapon that didn't need to be drawn right away. Their house was in one of those new developments outside Lincoln. Vinyl siding, identical porches, 2 bright holiday lights that blinked like they were trying too hard. When Brian opened the door, he smiled like I was exactly the person he wanted to see. Mom, you made it. Come in, come in. He hugged me like we'd spoken yesterday, like he hadn't cut me off for 20 years and then canceled Christmas the moment he thought I had nothing to offer. Joanne followed behind him, thinner than I remembered, but with the same rehearsed warmth in her eyes. Evelyn, she said, you look so, well. I handed her the small tin of cookies I'd brought, not because I owed them anything, but because old habits die hard. Their living room was too expensive for their lifestyle. Designer furniture that didn't match art pieces that screamed sale item and a flat screen that took up half the wall, all paid for, I imagined, by other people's money. We sat at a long dining table set for 8, though only 3 places had been prepared. Turkey stuffing rolls, too perfect, too untouched. The meal looked catered. The warmth in the room wasn't real, it was staged. I made small talk, asked about the house, the neighborhood, the weather. Joanne offered wine, Brian offered charm. Then dessert came, and with it, the pitch. Actually, Mom, Brian said, setting down his fork with casual precision, I've been working on a new opportunity, AI integration for smart kitchens, automated prep stations, intuitive meal planning, the future of home cooking. I nodded, chewing slowly. and I've already got some interest from international backers. But to lock in this next phase, I need to move fast. We're talking life-changing returns here, Mom, for all of us. Joanne leaned in, her voice soft. We know things were rough with your investments earlier, but since you bounced back, she glanced at my bag. I could practically hear the word checkbook forming behind her teeth. I smiled just a little. Then came the knock. 3 short raps. Firm. Official. Brian's brows furrowed. I wasn't expecting anyone. He got up and opened the door. A man in a dark coat stood in the doorway holding a white envelope. Brian Carter. Yes. You've been served. The man turned and walked away, like it was just another delivery. Brian stared at the envelope in his hands, like it had bitten him. Joanne stood. What is it, lawsuit? He whispered. Multiple lawsuits. He flipped through the pages, asset freezes, civil charges, fraud. His hands began to shake. How did they even find me? Joanne rushed to his side. Stanley, Evelyn, this is ridiculous. They must be mistaken. I stayed seated. These things have a way of catching up, I said softly. Then Joanne's phone buzzed and buzzed again and again. She picked it up. Her face went pale. What's happening? Brian asked, his voice cracking. She turned the screen toward him. Posts, hundreds of them, screenshots of her fundraiser, the fake cancer campaign, a news article already up, Lincoln woman accused of faking illness for donations. Who leaked this? She whispered. I stood up slowly and reached into my bag. I laid the manila folder on the table, the same one they never saw coming. That's your Christmas gift, I said quietly. Joanne's lip trembled. You did this. No, I said. You did this. I just put a bow on it. Brian stepped forward, desperate now. Mom, listen, this isn't how it looks. We were trying to rebuild. If you help us now, we can fix it, lawyers, PR. You canceled Christmas the moment you thought I was broke, I said calmly. And now you want me to save you because I didn't disappear. Joanne reached out like she could smooth over 2 decades of damage with one gesture. Please, we're family. I looked at her hand, then back at Brian. You lost the right to use that word when you stopped being one. Then I turned and walked to the door, slipping my coat on, as they stood frozen, surrounded by everything they'd built on lies. As I opened the door, I heard Joanne's voice behind me. Evelyn, don't do this. You're ruining us. I didn't look back. No, I said. You ruined yourselves. I just stopped covering for it. The snow outside was soft beneath my feet, and for the first time in 20 years, I didn't feel cold at all. The drive home that night was quiet. No music, no podcast, just the hum of tires against the snow-dusted road and the soft rhythm of my breath. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just let the silence hold me. When I pulled into the driveway, the porch light glowed like a quiet welcome. I stepped inside, hung up my coat, and placed my bag on the chair by the door. It was over, not the pain, not entirely. That would take time, but the pretending that was done. For 20 years, I carried the weight of what I thought I did wrong. I wondered if maybe I'd been too hard on Brian, too critical. Maybe if I'd just called one more time, forgiven, one more slat bent, one more boundary, things would have turned out differently. But they didn't. And now I knew it wasn't because I failed as a mother. It was because they chose convenience over character. The next morning, I made myself tea and watched the sunrise. It came slow, gentle, soft pink, spilling over the snow-covered rooftops, like forgiveness that didn't need to be spoken aloud. I wasn't angry anymore. That was the real gift. Not revenge, not punishment, but freedom from hoping they'd change. From tying my worth to their love. A few days later, Tessa from the Lincoln Herald called to check in. Her piece had gone viral. Donations to fake medical fundraisers had dropped by nearly 30% in our state. Real patients were finally getting a spotlight. You started something, she told me. You really did. I didn't say much, just thanked her for treating the story with dignity. That weekend, I visited Grandma's Grace. The bakery was thriving without me, and that made me proud. The new owner, a young single mom named Leah, had kept my recipes and added her own flair. I left a handwritten note on the counter. Keep doing what you're doing. The world needs more of this. Then I drove 2 hours south to the Children's Hospital in Omaha, the same one Joanne claimed she'd been receiving chemo at. I asked for the head of donations and handed her a sealed envelope, inside a cashier's check for $50,000. The receptionist looked stunned. "Do you want your name on the plaque, or—" I shook my head. "Just write, 'In honor of the people who still believe in kindness.'" I spent New Year's Eve with Patricia and her family. They'd invited me over for chili cornbread and a puzzle. No big speeches, no awkward questions, just warmth, laughter, and the sound of a toddler mispronouncing cinnamon. It was the best New Year's I'd had in decades. As for Brian and Joanne, I haven't heard from them since. I don't expect to. They'll deal with the lawsuits, the fallout, the headlines. Maybe someday they'll feel remorse. Maybe not, but that's no longer my burden. I stopped waiting for their apology the moment I chose myself. Some nights I still think about the little boy who used to curl up in my lap while I read him bedtime stories. I let myself miss that version of him without guilt, without shame. And then I remind myself he grew up, he made choices, so did I. It took me 20 years to find my voice again, but now that I have it, I won't give it back. This Christmas, I lit one candle on the windowsill. No tree, no presents, just the candle. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved just to find peace? If my story touched something in you, don't forget to leave a comment below. I'd love to hear yours. And if you believe more people need to hear stories like this, please like, share, and subscribe. Sometimes healing starts with simply knowing you're not alone.